is the first India Techs in Sri Lanka doing it virtually, showcasing the colors of India. And I'm sure that over the years, we will be able to deepen these colors as we exchange views and get together for mutual benefit. Again, I'd like to once again say a very big thank you to the Honorable Minister for taking time out. And sir, we are truly delighted with your kind presence. In fact, I was watching you closely on Twitter, and I loved one of your very recent quotes where you said that in this time of great difficulty, we need to act with discipline, courage, and vigor. And I can tell you, sir, that this resonates very closely with what we have been attempting here at FICCI in terms of working to driving closer relationships between India and the countries close by. So your words ring true for all of us in India and indeed the rest of the world as we face the pandemic. We'd like to take a quick minute to wish a very speedy recovery to all the affected populations in Sri Lanka and hope that the green shoots of economic recovery will soon grow into strong big trees and hopefully we will see life coming back to a sense of normalcy. I'd also like to thank the Indian High Commission in Colombo for their tremendous source of encouragement and support to us in terms of executing activities which have actually gone to fundamentally deepening India Sri Lanka bilateral cooperation. Again, I'd like to express my heartfelt concern and prayers for the peoples of both Sri Lanka and here in India as we fight hand in hand against the menace of COVID 19. We are very touched and deeply aware how in May and June of 2021, a series of prayers and ceremonies were held by people of different faiths across Sri Lanka for the well being of the people of India in the wake of the COVID 19 pandemic. In fact, a multi religious, countrywide Vishwa Ashirwad Horava was organized by the Ministry of Buddhasana, Culture and Religious Affairs, headed by the Honorable Prime Minister Rajapaksa. We are truly touched by this noble gesture. And I'm sure that your prayers helped us to overcome, to whatever extent we have been, the second wave of the pandemic here in India. Through this platform, I would like to assure friends in Sri Lanka that India stands strong besides it and will extend the best possible support to the people of Sri Lanka to overcome these challenging times. India and Sri Lanka have a legacy of intellectual, cultural, religious, linguistic interaction. And this is a relationship that we have been proud of between our two countries, which predates all of us 2,500 years. And I think trade and investment has only grown, and cooperation in the fields of education, culture, defense, many, many opportunities for us to do many more things going forward in the future. We certainly are incredibly proud that we have a broad understanding of the major issues which are of international interest to all of us. We also value Sri Lanka's large trade partnership with us, and we are incredibly proud that we continue to be one of the largest trade partners of Sri Lanka. And Sri Lanka, in turn, is one of our largest trade partners in the SAARC region. I know that our trade today can grow significantly. Our bilateral trade today amounts to 3.6 billion US dollars. And, as they say, the future beckons. In addition to being Sri Lanka's largest trade partner, we are also one of the largest contributors of foreign direct investment in Sri Lanka. And a number of leading firms from India invested and established their presence in your country, including the firm that I come from. According to the Board of India from India, amounted to $1.7 billion during the period 2005 to 2019. And as you know, the main investments from India have been in the areas of petroleum, retail, tourism, hotel, manufacturing, real estate, and it goes on and on, telecommunications, banking, finance, and so on. And likewise, we are very, very proud that Sri Lankan companies have also invested very significantly in India. You cannot When you look at corporates in India, ignore brands like Brandix, which have a $1 billion setup in the city of Vishakhapatnam, Mass Holdings, Damro, LTL Holdings, and so many other investments that are coming in the freight sector and the logistics sector. So I think we have a very buoyant relationship between the two countries. We also recognize that Sri Lanka will continue to remain to be an important supplier of apparel due to your inherent advantage in relation to infrastructure, state of the art manufacturing facilities, and your reputation as a supplier of niche and branded products, particularly in the fashion segment. Given this opportunity, abundant opportunities, we believe, exist for developing synergy for mutual benefit between Indian suppliers of yarn and fabric and Sri Lankan manufacturers of apparel products. A greater collaboration will open up avenues for both the Sri Lankan apparel industry to look more positively at the emerging domestic Indian market in view of the progressive reduction in tariff and non tariff barriers under the SAFTA program. I'd like to commit to you that FICCI and the Department of Commerce, Ministry of Commerce and Industry, Government of India, have taken the initiative to form a one stop shop where Indian and Sri Lankan textile companies can come together and explore more avenues of business. We are confident that joint ventures, collaborations, long term business deals will take place. And FICCI is indeed proud to bring high quality textile manufacturers and exporters from India to this virtual expo. As you know, FICCI is the nodal industry chamber leading private sector initiatives and actively supporting the vision of the Government of India in Sri Lanka. The South Asia desk of FICCI has spearheaded a host of capacity building and thought leadership initiatives. Buyer seller meets, innovative fairs, product shows in both countries with institutional partner, the Federation of Chamber of Commerce and Industry in Sri Lanka have indeed been successful. FICCI, in fact, has a dedicated South Asia Regional Council, which I am very proud to chair. Our focus is on various aspects where we can fast track the resolution of issues being faced by member countries in the region and identify new areas of collaboration to strengthen our cooperation in economic, commercial, and investment fields between India and South Asia. We also see a tremendous role for ourselves in terms of contributing to economic diplomacy within South Asia. I'd like to assure you that members of FICCI that cover almost all important sectors of activity within South Asia are very committed to supporting the cause. In fact, some of our key members include Tata Sons, the State Bank of India, Aditya Birla, CNH, Ace Cranes, KEC, Larsen and Toubro, and my own firm, Mahindra and Mahindra, amongst the largest firms in India, are a part of our council. I'd like to also proudly share that the South Asia desk of FICCI has been very actively engaged with Sri Lanka. And I think that we are also happy to be officially designated as the nodal chamber in India by the Ministry of Commerce and Industry, Government of India, for India-Sri Lanka Free Trade Agreement related issues. We also work very closely in terms of the Business Secretariat from India and the Sri Lanka CEO Forum. So we are very, very committed, sir, to support and help the businesses, service providers seize the opportunity. And we believe that we can truly drive exports during these stress times using virtual platforms like this. I am indeed very, very pleased that more than 50 Indian companies from the textiles domain are participating in this expo. And despite the unfortunate situation that we are in, we are very pleased that a number of buyers and textile associations from Sri Lanka have come forward to participate here. I am very, very confident that the Sri Lankan market would welcome Indian companies with open arms, and we truly look forward to a fruitful business tie up. With these words, I'd like to once again welcome all of you and wish all the exhibitors and buyers all the very best and hope the expo a grand success. Thank you for listening in, and a very good morning to all of you once again.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chuk. FICCI Secretary General, Mr. Dilip Chenoy is here with us. Sir, may I invite you for a word of welcome to the Minister and all the eminent participants.
Thank you, Shushma, and Honorable Minister, Mr. Dayashree Jayasekhara. So thank you very much for joining us this morning. As the chairman of our South Asia Council, Mr. Manoj Chuk, said that the situation of COVID is challenging. In that context, for you to be here, we are indeed privileged and honored that you have joined us. Thank you also the Indian High Commission, Ms. Irina Thakur, and all the other partners, and Mr. T. Rajkumar, the chairman of Citi. So thank you. And I just wanted to just especially welcome you and thank you for being with us today.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Now, may I invite Mr. T. Rajkumar, Chairman of Confederation of Indian Textile Industry, for his inaugural remarks.
Thank you. Honorable Shri Dayashree Jayasekhara, State Minister of Batik, Handloom and Local Apparel Products, Government of Sri Lanka, Mrs. Irina Thakur, First Secretary, Commerce and Culture, High Commission of India in Sri Lanka, Mr. Manoj Chuk, Chair, FICCI South Asia Regional Council, Mr. Dilip Chenoy, Secretary General of FICCI, friends from FICCI, friends from Confederation of Indian Textile Industry, friends from the North India Textile Research Association, dignitaries, others, I thank you all for this wonderful opportunity and good morning to all. At the outset, I would like to thank the Federation of Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industry FICCI for partnering with the Confederation of Indian Textile Industry CITI and organizing this virtual expo and B2B meet entitled India Tex in Sri Lanka, showcasing colors of India. It's a privilege for me to be a part of this inaugural session and share my thoughts on the future of the India-Sri Lanka partnership in textiles. The relationship between India and Sri Lanka is more than 2 centuries old, and both sides have built upon a legacy of intellectual, cultural, religious, and linguistic interaction. In order to enhance bilateral trade, India and Sri Lanka signed the India-Sri Lanka Free Trade Agreement on 28 December 1998, which came into force on 1st March 2000. The ISFTA provides duty-free access and duty preferences to goods barring those which are on the negative list. With the passage of time, both countries have shown growth in trade and investment, and there has always been a cooperation in the field of development, education, culture, and defense from both sides. After China, India is the second largest exporter to Sri Lanka, not in just overall merchandise exports, but in textile and apparel as well. During 2020, India's merchandise exports to Sri Lanka stood at 3.2 billion US dollars, while India's merchandise imports from Sri Lanka were about 0.7 US billion dollars during the same period. Thus, India enjoys an overall trade surplus about 2.5 billion with Sri Lanka. As far as trade and apparel trade is concerned, India exported textile and apparel commodities worth 0.5 billion US dollars, while imports of textile and apparel commodities was about 0.09 billion during 2020. We all know that recently our Honorable Prime Minister Sri Narendra Modi ji has set an ambitious target of achieving 400 billion US dollars merchandise export during the present fiscal. Out of the country's total export target of 400 US billion dollars, the Ministry of Textiles have set an export target of more than US $44 billion by March 31st, 2022, which is more than 11% of the total merchandise exports of the India. The textile industry of India is very confident of achieving the same. Increasing the presence in the existing market is one of the ways to increasing the trade between the two partner countries. Honorable Minister, Sri Lanka has always shown the way on the efficiency in the apparel production, and India is to follow the same. India has a share of about 22% in Sri Lanka's total textile and apparel imports from the world. However, looking at the similarity in culture and trade practices, and owing to low logistic costs due to close distance between the two countries, there is an ample scope between the two countries, India and Sri Lanka, to increase the trade. While tariff concessions, physical incentives, and various schemes are already there, Indian manufacturers need to identify the potential sectors where India has a comparative advantage in Sri Lankan market and should work towards achieving the same in a competitive way. Honorable Minister, I have personally visited many of your textile parks and I have been extremely impressed the way the Sri Lankan production and efficiency is about. Thereby, Sri Lanka has achieved the overall apparel exports in the world. Building more comprehensive long-term ties between our both countries, our commercial entities will enhance capacity, provide employment, and increase prosperity between the two nations. Post-COVID-19, both sides could draw upon the past successes and the ongoing cooperation to build way forward. Sri Lanka can evaluate possibilities of setting up joint ventures with Indian textile companies, and Sri Lanka managers and executives are widely respected in India, and many of them have been already working in our apparel clusters such as Tirupur, Ludhiana, Kanpur, and other places. The last few years have also witnessed an increasing trend of Sri Lankan investments into India. One such example is Brandex, which is a world-class apparel located in the port city of Visakhapatnam, the state of Andhra Pradesh. Both the countries from time to time should encourage and organize B2B meetings and facilitate visit of trade delegation with a view to increase business opportunities. I am extremely sure my fellow members and friends in the textile and apparel industry will tap this market and will forge close production linkage through the expansion of trade and investment flows. I once again thank FICCI for partnering with us, and I'm extremely sure that in the future also we will successfully organize many more events for the betterment of the Indian textile and apparel sector. I wish FICCI all the best and success. Thank you, Honorable Minister. Thank you, Madam Irina Thakur, our first Secretary of the High Commission of India in Sri Lanka. Thank you all for this wonderful opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for setting the tone for today's discussion. May I now invite Mrs. Irina Thakur, First Secretary, Commerce and Culture of the High Commission of India in Sri Lanka, to share her address.
Good morning and Ayubovan, Honorable State Minister of Batik, Handloom and Local Apparel Products of Sri Lanka, Mr. Dayasiri Jayasekar, Ms. Upeka from the Sri Lankan High Commission in New Delhi, FICCI General Secretary, Mr. Chinnoy, the Chair of FICCI South Asia Regional Council, Mr. Chug, Chairman, Confederation of Indian Textile Industry, Mr. T. Rajkumar, and all other officials present here today. I would like to first and foremost thank Honorable Minister for accepting FICCI's invitation as the guest of honor today. We do understand that this is a very difficult time for Sri Lanka, and we do hope and pray that the situation in Sri Lanka normalizes very soon. As Mr. Chog has already mentioned, we are thankful for Sri Lanka's support and prayers when India was dealing with the second wave of COVID in April and May this year, and we hope that the situation in Sri Lanka improves very soon. I would also like to thank and congratulate FICCI for organizing this event at a very short notice, I must say, on a very important sector which has huge potential for growth for both the countries, for both India and Sri Lanka. We already have a robust cooperation in textile sector. India is the second largest supplier of textile and clothing to Sri Lanka. There are provisions and quotas under India-Sri Lanka free trade agreements and also under the other free trade agreements which both the countries are part of to promote trade in textiles. As already mentioned, Brandex, one of the largest companies in Sri Lanka in the textile sector, has set up a world-class apparel city in India. But still there are opportunities, there is scope for growth and cooperation in textile. The government of Sri Lanka has placed great focus and attention on the growth of textile and apparel industry here under the able guidance of Honorable Minister. On the other hand, the textile and apparel industry in India also has strengths across the entire value chain, from fiber, yarn, fabric to apparels. It is highly diversified with products ranging from traditional handloom, handicrafts, wool, cotton, silk products. So I am sure that we both the countries have a lot to learn from each other, and this interaction is just a beginning. I am confident that it will open doors for new collaborations, joint ventures, partnerships, business linkages, and in turn will help both the countries in economic recovery in the post-COVID world. I again thank Vicky and all the organizers and wish them all the best for a successful 3-day event. Please be assured of Mission's full support and cooperation in this endeavor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam. Now it is time for the special address by the Honorable Minister. Honorable Dayasri Jayasekara, the State Minister of Batik, Handloom and Local Apparel Products of Sri Lanka, is a Member of Parliament from the Kurunegala district of the Northwestern Province of Sri Lanka. He is known as an advocate of progressive socio-economic policy. He was a former Chief Minister of the Northwestern Province, former Minister for Sports, and also former Minister for Skill Development and Vocational Training in Sri Lanka. He chairs several parliamentary committees and is also an author and a speaker par excellence. So we now invite the Honorable Minister for his special address.
Good morning, Mrs. Irina Thakur, First Secretary, Commerce and Culture, High Commission of India in Sri Lanka. Mr. Manoj Chu, Chair, FICCI South Asia Regional Council. Mr. T. Rajkumar, Chairman, Confederation of Indian Textile Industry. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me a great pride and honor to address this distinguished gathering on the inaugural session of Indian Text in Sri Lanka, showcasing colors of India, virtual exhibition. On a very light note, the theme that the organizers have picked for this exhibition, showcasing colors of India is very creative and captures the very Ministry of Commerce and Industry, Indian High Commission of Sri Lanka, and all in objective-driven approach in terms of organizing such exhibitions. Greater integration of economies has been witnessed through the textile and apparel industry. India being Sri Lanka through trend and vice versa. Our trading links date back not centuries, but millennia. For instance, Sri Lanka remains one of the largest trading partners of India within the SAARC, and India is Sri Lanka's second largest trading partner, amounting to over 3.5 billion US dollars in 2020. This clearly shows the closer relationship between our two nations in strengthening and progressive industry and commerce. The outbreak of COVID-19 led to unprecedented human, social, and economic degradation. As a result, the Sri Lankan economy contracted for the first time since gaining independence. We are at a very critical juncture in our socio-economic standing, where our industrialists need foreign markets to earn much needed foreign exchange. Hence, events and opportunities of this nature is pivotal for our manufacturers, whether small or large, to seek partnerships. As you might be aware, Sri Lanka apparel exports amounts to over 5 billion US dollars. However, due to the COVID outbreak, our export did witness a drop in 2020. In 2020, where it amounted to around 4.4 billion US dollars. In comparison, at present, the statistics show an upward trend as we are gradually mastering the manner to work with COVID. We are very capable industrialists, have integrated numerous health and safety measures protecting the employee, and we are also very proud to state that Sri Lanka is leading the vaccination drive under the leadership of His Excellency President Gotabaya Rajapaksa. My scope of responsibility is in relation to batik, handloom, and local apparel, where we have established numerous measures to strengthen and expand, however, with limited scope due to the prevailing issues with the pandemic. For instance, batik and handloom are largely cottage-based industries. We require close coordination with our manufacturers to find both local and foreign markets. Nonetheless, with a complete halt on the tourism industry, our local manufacturers have found it very challenging to supply to the local market. From another perspective, our local manufacturers seek the assistance of foreign markets, where even in the midst of the pandemics, we have the ability to export. This is what number of large textile manufacturers have done in Sri Lanka. These large companies have secured foreign markets and expanded operations locally to cater to the increased demand. These large companies are listed on the Colombo Stock Exchange, and the financials show record-breaking growth. The significant aspect that I see is the integration of technology to the entire process of manufacturing. Therefore, such companies have been able to expand favorably. Presently, we have been able to increase our woven textile from about 1 million meters per year to 100 million meters. And as a measures to protect and promote our local industry, we have banned all forms of batik importation to the country. This is also a measure taken to avoid low-grade batik entering our markets, thus dampening our brand image globally. Furthermore, we have established numerous institutes and technology support centers to assist cottage-based manufacturing across the country. In conclusion, my ministry is actively seeking foreign investment for private-public partnerships, technological support, professional expertise, employment generation, and access to foreign markets. And I must especially mention here, we have already have organized a park, technical park. It is called Eraul Fabric Park. We have already started our construction process. I invite you all to come and visit Sri Lanka and see all these opportunities that you have in Sri Lanka. In order to achieve this, we can actively commence of bilateral discussions, negotiations, and agreements with the understanding our two nations have developed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Now, to thank the Minister and the other speakers, may I invite Mr. Manish Singhal, Deputy Secretary General of FICCI and the head of the International Division. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Sushma, and good morning, everyone. Honorable Minister, Mr. Jayasekara, Minister of State of Batik, Handloom, Local Apparel Products of Sri Lanka, Mrs. Thakur, First Secretary, High Commission of India in Sri Lanka, Mr. T. Rajkumar, Chairman, Confederation of Indian Textile Industry, and Mr. Manoj Chugh, Chair, FICCI South Asia Regional Council. My dear exhibitors, participants in today's knowledge session, all across the textile sector in India and Sri Lanka. A sincere thanks to Honorable Minister for joining us today. So your presence really motivates us to keep collaborating and cooperating on not only on this subject, but overall with a dear neighbor like Sri Lanka. Thank you for making it convenient today. We are, of course, delighted to have you also because I think there is a lot Indian and Sri Lankan textile industry can do together. And of course, we have to look at it along with the garments industry, which is very, very well entrenched in both the countries. So probably I would also want to take this opportunity that in a way in global markets, India and Sri Lanka actually also compete with each other. But probably it's also time, like it was echoed in a few of the talks just now, it's probably time to also look at collaborating and establishing some regional value chains as far as the textile garment sector is concerned. And when I say regional value chains, I am obviously implying that we also need to rope in a country like Bangladesh, because all three of us together have tremendous strength, not only in the textile sector, but also adding value to it and converting them into garments. So if probably three countries really join hands together and establish regional supply chains, we could really be a force to reckon with for the whole world. Uh, Beyond this, no particular suggestions, but just thanks to a lot of our other partners who've supported us today, Mrs. Irina Thakur, Dr. Rakesh Pandey, Mr. Vivek Sharma at the High Commission. They've been a great support for putting all this together today. Mr. T. Rajkumar and City, of course, because they're partnering in this initiative, obviously meant that this initiative is a success. We have 47 Indian companies at the Indian tech from the textile industry, and we've organized a lot of B2B meetings for them. We are sure that this is only the first step, that our companies and Sri Lankan companies are able to do more business together and maybe take a first baby step towards what I proposed as regional value chains in the textile and the garment sector. I must, of course, mention the support we get from Ministry of Commerce and Industry for organizing such events, and at the same time, our High Commission in Sri Lanka. In addition, of course, I already mentioned about City, but NITRA from India and Joint April Association from Sri Lanka, April Brands Association, etc. All these actually institutions have really worked together to get all of us together today. So I'm sure that this is just the right way we should look at cooperation in other sectors also. Before I sign off, just two very, very iconic initiatives which currently FICCI is working on, and since they are global in nature, we really need Sri Lanka to have their participation in a big way. First is LEADS 2021. LEADS is an acronym for Leadership, Excellence, Adaptability, Diversity, and Sustainability. It's a global thought leadership program where we've already got 45 global speakers from about 24 countries and registrations for over 52 countries already in the last few weeks. So we invite everybody from Sri Lanka to join. You can register on www.ficcileads.in. As far as our MOU partners like Ceylon Chambers and others are concerned in Sri Lanka, we've also offered complimentary registrations to them. But yeah, they would close very soon. In addition, you all would be aware that there is a World Expo happening in Dubai starting 1st October this year and ending on 31st March next year. World Expo Dubai happens once in 5 years. This year, 192 countries, including Sri Lanka, are participating there. India, of course, also has a huge India pavilion out there where we will be showcasing the best of India, but at the same time, inviting each of these 192 countries, including Sri Lanka, to interact with business delegations which will be going out of Sri Lanka, out of India. So I would request Sri Lankan businessmen to look at meeting us in the World Expo also, because that will be a good opportunity not only to meet Indian delegations, but delegations from all over the world. With these words, thank you and a good business event to all the participants today. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, we come to the end of the inaugural session. We start with a technical session at 11:15 IST. Till then, thank you very much. Once again, thanks to the Honorable Minister and all the speakers. We can sign out now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Minister.
Sushma. We will have a technical session now, which will be talking about the future of India-Sri Lanka partnership in textiles, for which I would like to invite a senior committee member of FICCI and managing director KG Denim, Mr. Sri Hari, to give his welcome remarks. Over to you, Mr. Sri Hari.
Thank you, Santosh. Thank you for FICCI for inviting me to talk today, also for this session, and also both and talk, so it takes time. So, Mr. Modani, committee member, Mr. Johan Lawrence, executive committee member, Mr. Lalanta Watadura, President Sri Lankan Brands Association, Santosh Natyal, Joint Director FICCI, exhibitors and buyers who participate in the expo. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of FICCI and the industry, textile industry, it is my delight to welcome you all to this inaugural ceremony of the first India Tex in Sri Lanka. FICCI has taken tremendous efforts for this. Thanks to the same, our company is participating today. Today we are showcasing Colors of India, which is commencing today. It's a 3-day exhibition. It is also my privilege to extend a very warm welcome to Mr. Modani. Thank you. Mr. Modani. He is the Managing Director of Sangam. Trade and investment between India and Sri Lanka have grown, and there is cooperation in the fields of development, education, culture, and defense. Sri Lanka is also a very large textile manufacturing hub. Both countries share a broad understanding on major issues of international interest as well as national interest. India has traditionally been among Sri Lanka's largest trade partners, and Sri Lanka remains among the largest trade partners of India in the SAARC. In 2020, India was Sri Lanka's second largest trading partner, with the bilateral merchandise trade amounting to about $3.6 billion. In addition to being India's largest trade partner, Sri Lanka is also a large strategic partner. India is also a large FDI investment in Sri Lanka. A lot of Indian companies, includes IOC, Airtel, have investments in Sri Lanka, and we have established a presence in Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka will continue to remain an important supplier of apparel. Due to various reasons, Sri Lanka is today a fantastic fashion producer of apparel. A lot of fabrics are consumed in Sri Lanka. A lot of yarn is consumed in Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka has state-of-the-art manufacturing facilities. Productivity-wise, they are today number 1 and number 2 in the world in terms of apparel. And they have got a reputation as a very niche branded product supplier in the fashion segment. Not in the commodity segment, but in the fashion segment. Given this scenario, abundant opportunities of synergy is available for mutual benefit between India and Sri Lanka for yarn and fabric supply. Fast fashion, today Sri Lanka holds a huge market share in that particular part of the business. I believe that this expo will bring together Sri Lankan craftsmanship and fineness. Using Indian fabric, using Indian yarn, a substantial foundation can be used for the future for this cooperation between India and Sri Lanka. A greater cooperation between India and Sri Lanka will open up more opportunities for the Indian manufacturing sector as well as Sri Lankan apparel sector. Sri Lanka can also make use of the Indian domestic market. We know quite a few large Indian brands are shipping our fabrics into Sri Lanka and buying them back under the duty-free SAFTA regime and selling them back in India. Bangladesh is also doing it. Sri Lankan apparel producers are also doing it. I think Indian domestic brands can benefit by the high fashion Sri Lankan design industry to use the Indian domestic market. I'm confident the Sri Lankan textile market would welcome the Indian companies with open arms, resulting in a fruitful business and tie-ups. With these words, I'd like to conclude my starting remarks and wish all the exhibitors and buyers all the best, and wish the expo to be a grand success. Should I proceed ahead?
Thank you, Mr. Srihari, for the welcome address and setting up the tone. Now, I would like to invite Dr. Modani, Senior Committee Member of City and a very big industrialist, Sangam Group, to address the session. Over to you, sir.
Very good morning to all distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. And thanks especially to Balakrishnan ji, who has set the tone for this meeting now, and Mr. Johan Lawrence, Executive Committee Member and Chairman, Talent Subcommittee of the JAF, and Mr. Lantham Batudra, President, Sri Lanka Apparel Brands Association. At the very outset, we can have a collaborative approach because Sri Lanka, as we see, has a tremendous potential and excellence in apparel manufacturing. When we see Sri Lankan export market, they are one of the largest producer from Sri Lanka to USA, where the quality speaks and their excellence in timely delivering and innovation for the design, whatever is there. So they will export close to $1650 million to USA, and USA they are exporting and they are having #1 position from Sri Lankan export to the globe. Now, whatever opportunities are available in textiles, Indian textile manufacturer to export raw materials in the form of fabrics and yarn, primarily cotton based, and win market share from Chinese competitors. Investment in development of Sri Lankan textiles production infrastructure to take advantage of their dominant garment producer status. India is having a huge base of raw material, while Sri Lanka is proficient in garment manufacturing. So it is a win-win situation in both support each other. And we can collaborate, and Sri Lanka should look forward for the good partners in with Indian companies and make use of their proficiency in garment manufacturing and Indian companies, because India is one of the largest producer of and exporting the cotton yarn next to China. And in this disruption after the COVID-19, we as a regional countries should form a cooperation where we can support each other and we should supplement each other's competence level so that we can achieve new heights in our export market. Signing economic and technology cooperation agreement to enhance bilateral trade relationship, as both the countries have a good relationship. And challenges what we see in times to come is that dominance of Chinese companies in both the financial and commodity supplies creating hindrance for Indian companies. But as your partners, if we see each other, we can achieve the new heights. And with the government of India's initiative that they are coming out with the PLI scheme, in which the good company, they are giving good incentives to the apparel manufacturing companies, where Indian companies along with the Sri Lankan companies can form a joint venture and to achieve new export growth for this reason. And that will give the way for the greater employment and more economical development to both the countries. And I hope with this event and FICCI's initiative along with CT and the government India's support and our High Commission over there.
Have you been able to join in?
There, we can have a better understanding in times to come and achieve the required goals. And India has already set a very ambitious target of $400 billion exports in next decades. So probably with Sri Lankan support and our innovation in textiles, probably we can achieve this target with our cooperation to each other. Thanks a lot. Thank you very much.
Santosh ma'am, you're on mute, please.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Modani, for the remarks. I would thank you for showing the path, basically, I would say, for a win-win situation between India and Sri Lanka. Now, I would request Mr. Johan Lawrence, who is a senior committee member Executive Committee member and Chair of Talent Subcommittee of JAF. JAF represents one of the biggest association of textile associations in Sri Lanka. So over to you, Mr. Lawrence.
Thank you, Santosh, and good morning, everybody. On behalf of the Joint Apparel Association Forum, we thank you to Federation of Indian Chambers of Commerce and Industries for joining us, for inviting us today, and also to Mr. Balakrishnan and Dr. Modani for your very kind words. I was asked to give you guys a short update on opportunities in textile and apparel in Sri Lanka. And if I can ask Santosh, please, to share the screen that I have sent you.
Yeah, just a minute. I'll share the screen.
Thank you. Thank you. So just to give you an update on JAF. So JAF is the apex body for the apparel industry, and we were established in 2003. We are an umbrella organization, so we are an organization of organizations, and we have within us a complete supply chain from raw material suppliers, apparel manufacturers, representatives of international brands. And JAF is the body that coordinates with the state authorities and legislators to ensure smooth working of the industry. Santosh, if we can go to the next slide. So in terms of the constituent members of JAF, we have 5 trade associations. The Sri Lanka Apparel Exporters Association, which is an association of apparel manufacturing companies. The Free Trade Zone Manufacturers Association, Fabric and Apparel Accessories Manufacturers Association, which is the raw material side to it. The Sri Lanka Chamber of Garment Exporters, which represents the small and medium sector, and the Sri Lanka Apparel Association, which represents the Exporters Association of Apparel Manufacturing Companies, the Free Trade Zone Manufacturers Association. Santosh, I think you need to mute your end because it's feeding back. Association, which is the raw material side. So in terms of the history of the industry, we started in 1950 with very modest beginnings. And then the industry grew through the 60s, through the 70s. Exporters Association is Association of Apparel Manufacturing. Came back into the 1980s, and then in 2009 we then started up with GSP benefits, and 2019, let's say 18, even 2019, we had apparel exports of $5.6 billion. Moving on, Santosh, please. In terms of where we are as an industry, so we have, as Santosh, you can move to the next slide. So we are a $5.6 billion industry. We represent 7% of the GDP of the country, and we have a 55% value addition in the industry. I just wanted to touch base and update you into. That's fine. We can move, Santosh. That's fine. In terms of where we are post-COVID, obviously, as with other industries as well, COVID affected Sri Lanka in a number of ways. So the strategy of the industries, we have 4 sectors that we play in from manufacturing. So intimates, activewear, casual wear, children's wear. And what I got below on the bottom is what our plan is, particularly in the post-COVID. So our primary focus at the moment is ensuring a safe working environment for employees. Our second priority is enhancing backward integration in terms of investment in to try to grow the fabric sector. Thirdly, positioning Sri Lanka's apparel industry for the future. And this is where there's, I think, in terms of things that we're talking of today, points, the second, third, and fourth points are really quite relevant and offer opportunities for India. So if we could move on, Santosh. So in terms of our strengths, and I know the speakers who went before me touched on all of these, what Sri Lanka is known for, where its location is, its speed, its quality. We're very well located geographically. Language of English is used widely. We have very good connectivities with manufacturers, with brands. There's a lot of work happening in Sri Lanka on innovation, on circular fashion in these areas. So Sri Lanka, we pitch ourselves as being at the forefront of the industry as we stand at the moment. Just in terms, Shankush, moving on, just in terms of where the industry grows and what opportunities there are. So in terms of this is the industry growth over the years. Obviously, 2020 saw about a 25% drop in exports because of COVID. Our plan for 2021 is to get back to our 2019 levels of over 5 billion. At the moment, we're a bit shy of that. I just wanted to pause for a second and also just give you a bit of a view of where our exports, what type of product it is. So the majority is knitted garments, so 58% of our exports are knit, 41% is woven. And in terms of our markets, the USA is the single biggest market at 40%. Then we have the EU, then the UK, and then other countries. So the EU, UK, and the USA account for something like 85% of Sri Lanka's total export. So it's a very focused destination in terms of where our exports go to. Next one, Santosh. So in terms of what we have imported, and this is really more to give you guys a feel for both fabrics that have been imported and yarns. So in 2020, and we took the very wide banding of HS codes 50 to 60. So there's a total of $2.2 billion of fabric and raw materials, that fabric and yarns that was imported into Sri Lanka. And next slide, Santosh. If you look at the mix of that from countries, the second largest country is India. So 523 million, or nearly 25% of Sri Lanka's imports of fabric and yarn came out of India. And I think this is testament to how reliant Sri Lanka is on India, and also what great opportunities there are to grow. Obviously, China is the biggest in that, but India comes in second, and we believe that with closer cooperation between our countries, we can look to increase the share of what is done out of India. Next one, please, Santosh. So in terms, and I'm sorry to go into a little bit of detail, but I just felt it's important for the audience to understand. So of this 2.28 million in imports, we've split that down into fabric and yarn and others. So fabric is 1.7 million, and out of that 1.7 million, 1.2 million goes into fabric for the export-oriented apparel manufacturing. The balance quantity of around 500 million goes into domestic production for local brands, for the organized sector, for trading, and so on. So there's quite a large split. A large part of that yarn that comes in, so in that 544 million, there is also a part of yarn that's used by the fabric mills in Sri Lanka. We have 7 fabric mills who produce fabric for the export industry, and all of their yarns are all imported, because other than for one company in Sri Lanka who does yarns, pretty much everything else is imported. So there's a lot of potential both on the yarn and on the fabric side for India. We could move on to the next slide, Santosh. Minister touched on this as well, and I just want to highlight that one of the areas of focus for the industry, as we talked, Sri Lanka is looking to grow its backward integration to get better volumes of fabric, and the BOI, which is the state organization for promotion of investment, is setting up a textile park in Batticaloa in the northeast of Sri Lanka. This park is under construction at the moment. There are already a couple of companies who have expressed interest, and it's an excellent opportunity if anybody out of India is looking to invest in the manufacture of fabric locally and move it onshore. There are great opportunities at the textile park. Next slide, Santosh. So in terms of fabric, so as I said, there's the zone that's coming in. There's a large amount of fabric. Fabric that comes in, so Sri Lanka has very few trade agreements. The big one for us is the EU GSP program, and we have a similar program with the UK. And fabric that comes out of either Sri Lanka or India will qualify for that. So again, in terms of that swift shift of moving away from Chinese fabrics to Indian fabrics where the qualities are possible, there is the option, obviously, that gives the benefit of duty-free into the EU. And EU and the UK as well. The next slide, Santosh. So in terms of sourcing, again, there is Sri Lanka, as I've said, we have the 4 key segments that we are, and Sri Lanka's share of world apparel trade is very small. So there's massive opportunity to grow. I think in terms of the discussions between our 2 organizations, there are 2 elements. One is the ISFTA free trade, and I know we was touched on earlier. This allows, unfortunately, albeit a limited quantity, but there is a certain amount of product out of Sri Lanka that can come into India duty-free. But I think one of the things we maybe want to look at between our 2 organizations is to look at lobbying to be able to have, outside of the ISFTA, an arrangement whereby Indian fabric can come into Sri Lanka, garments manufactured in Sri Lanka, and then come back into India duty-free. So I think this is one that this model works with other countries as well, where there is an independent arrangement on this. And this is something which, if FCCI is keen, we could look at cooperating to try to develop. I think it'll give excellent opportunities both for Indian textile manufacturers and for Sri Lankan apparel manufacturers. Next one. So I think that's it. I just wanted to give a rough snapshot. As I said, we do have the full detail in terms of what fabrics are imported, right down to the sort of 8 HS code levels. So if there is any further information that any of your members are looking for in terms of what fabrics and yarns Sri Lanka imports, we can make that information available offline. So with that, I'll conclude and happy to take any comments or questions either now or later in the session. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lawrence. It was actually quite enlightening about the sector in Sri Lanka and the opportunities.
Santosh, you're mute. You're not unmuted.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Sorry. We look forward to supersede China and become #1 in import of for the importing of fabric and yarn by China, by Sri Lanka. And we look forward, this program is basically being organized with the aim for mutual cooperation. So we look forward that our companies who are registered, who are exhibiting today, have good business meetings with the Sri Lankan companies. Now, I would like to invite Mr. Watendru from the Brands Association of Sri Lanka, one of the most important association in Sri Lanka. They are manufacturing brands and they are sending across the globe. Over to you, Mr. Watendru. You are on mute, Mr. Watendru.
Yeah, it's good now.
Yeah.
Santosh, I shared Slava manifesto. If you can please share that on the screen, I emailed you. Right. Thank you. Yeah. Okay, let's move on. Yeah, the country. Yeah. Sri Lanka Apparel Brands Association (SLAVA) represents the national apparel brand, national clothing brands of Sri Lanka. So it's our own design talents and then homegrown brands, etc. So we have been functional since like 2010, and especially last 3-4 years, we have taken Slaba to a different level by recognizing most of the homegrown clothing brands, some of which have already started exporting their own clothing lines as well. So in Slaba, basically, let's move on. I think if I read out all this, it will take a lot of time. But let me take you to Slaba roadmap. The next page, please. Yeah. Okay. Right. So our basically mission is to create a happy family concept in Sri Lanka in terms of apparel manufacturing for the national brands. So basically, we are now working with the minister and the ministry itself, building a 25 machine domestic like cottage type of manufacturing units, about 3,000 units in the country, some of which are already functioning, but to get them to a minimum industry standard, to be on par with quality standards, to be able to get them to be, from cut to pack kind of facilities that can cater to any international standards. Right. So we have already started that. Because of the pandemic, things are a bit like, dragging, but we are already working on it. So right now, our industry, we have recognized it's to be about 575 billion rupees Sri Lankan, which is close to about $3 billion US dollars annually. And let's move on, Santosh. Yeah, I'll keep talking. Yeah. Right. So we are looking at domestic consumption. We have department stores, some of the like top-end, high-end shopping malls as well, such as Shangri-La malls, functional in Sri Lanka now, along with international brands, well-known international brands. Some of our members showcase their domestic brands at Shangri-La mall as well. Right. So obviously, Sri Lanka at the moment is, I would say, a little behind in terms of our own textile manufacturing, especially for the woven fabric sector. Knit manufacturing, to a great extent, we are kind of self-sufficient, I would say. So like Johan also mentioned, and I'm sure Minister also would have highlighted that, we are looking for speed to market and how fast we could get fabrics, good fabrics to Sri Lanka to, to utilize your fabrics to, our clothing line. So very simple as that. So basically, I know some of our members already working with some of the companies who are already registered with you, but we can explore, and as long as we can meet international quality standards, and then the consistency. Of course, the lead time is like you mentioned. If you wanted to like take a lead with China, so you have that edge already in terms of lead time, transit time between Sri Lanka and India. And also we have the ability to utilize your own fabric and come back to India to sell our, products. Some of the brands are already doing it in a smaller scale, but that's a bigger picture, the next 5 years. And let's move on to the, let's say, yeah. All right. So we actually, yeah, marketplace concept. Yeah. You know, now Sri Lanka, you know, as an island, like we have really not exposed ourselves to compared to some of the regional shopping hubs like such as Thailand, etc. We are actually working on having a wholesale marketplace in Sri Lanka. Obviously, we know Sri Lanka post pandemic will be number one in, like, you know, in terms of tourism. So to attract regular tourists, holiday makers, and also the business tourists to grab attention of the Middle Eastern tourists and the African tourists, we are including tourists from your country as well. So we are planning that. So one side, we are building the 3,000 factory concept, minimum 25 machines. And then the other end of the other extreme is building the wholesale market place. So that obviously along with a virtual platform as well. So, so all in all, like, you know, we see that we would grow. I would say hopefully starting from this time next year, and then moving on to 2025. So definitely there is room and there is potential for us to work with India, especially on cotton. We know that you are very strong in cottons, and in synthetic we don't have that much clarity, but we can look at those options. At the moment, I believe majority of our fabrics come from China, to be very honest with you. So basically, doors are open for your organizations to basically to pitch and get the fabric we require, and then work with our members. So even after this exhibition, there could be one-on-one, you know, meetings and, you know, understanding exactly what the clothing, you know, brands require. And I believe to start with, that would work well for you, because Slaba was not like, you know, kind of, we did not have prominence before, obviously because of, you know, we could not kind of figure out, you know, how many domestic brands we have in the country, and, you know, there's smaller scale, but at least now we have about 50 members who are solid and very consistent and professional. So we are integrating, you know, keep on improving things, and we are on par with, most of our members are on par with most of the international brands in terms of product integrity and the compliances, etc. So I think from my side, that's probably it for now. And we look forward to tying up strong business relationships with some of your members, yeah, especially on textiles.
Thank you, Mr. Vatendru. Yes, we do see opportunity for collaboration between India and Sri Lanka. Now, but these opportunities that are available, that have been shown, we now conclude the session, and we would request all the Sri Lankan companies and your members to please register and join us for the B2B meeting and for the exhibition, which is live on a FICCI Bike platform. We have already shared the link for registration with all the speakers and with all the industry members. You can just join and see how the exhibition is going on.
All right, thank you for accommodating us.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Santosh. Thank you, everybody. Stay safe.
Thank you, sir.
Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye. Bye.
Thanks.